Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are heading straight down to pitch level in Miami for an absolute thriller of a match. I'm talking about the massive 2026 World Cup semifinal clash between England and Norway. We're going to break down exactly how this tense, high-stakes game unfolded, turning all those chaotic match events into a crystal clear picture of tactical adjustments and ultimately triumph. Listen, if you've been following this tournament, you already know how absolutely crucial every single micro moment is at this stage. So let's dive right in by asking the defining question of the match. Down 1-0 in a World Cup semifinal, facing a truly lethal Norwegian attack that was just firing on all cylinders, how in the world did England manage to completely flip the script and walk away with a 2-1 victory? Because conceding the opening goal on a stage like this, with the whole world watching, yeah, that's usually a death sentence for a team's morale. But as we're about to see, England found a way to rewrite that typical ending. All right, part 1, Surviving the Storm. Norway's early onslaught. To really grasp how England pulled this off, we first have to understand the sheer force of the storm they had to weather right from the opening whistle. This match was a complete emotional roller coaster. So in the first half, Norway is absolutely dominating. They're pressing hard into dangerous areas, and they grab that opening lead. Then, right at the most crucial checkpoint, halftime, Bellingham strikes to equalize literally on the stroke of the break. And finally, you get this grueling second half, both teams having to go the distance in that intense South Florida heat before England finally secures their winning sequence. This was a gritty, come-from-behind story that tested absolutely every single ounce of England's resolve. Just think about the physical mismatch playing out in those opening stages. You've got Norway's heavyweights applying immense, suffocating pressure. Erling Haaland is finding unmarked space in the middle. Alexander Sorloth is prowling for openings. Antonio Nusa is looking incredibly lively, just pulling defenders out of position left and right, all while Patrick Berg is orchestrating these dangerous runs. And against all that, England's defense, anchored by John Stones, Ezri Konsa, and Jordan Pickford in goal, is in a total scramble. They were getting penned in, making desperate clearances, just dealing with this massive physical overload. And while ultimately, that overwhelming pressure cracked them, leading to Norway's opening goal. I mean, the tension inside that Miami stadium was just palpable. Trailing 1-0, the South Florida heat beating down on them, England desperately needed a spark before the break just to stay alive in this tournament. Because think about it. Dragging yourselves into the locker room at halftime feeling defeated against a Norwegian team that's already scored half a dozen goals in this World Cup. That would have been devastating. They needed a major tactical shift, but honestly, more importantly, they needed a jolt of energy to kickstart them back to life. Which brings us to part 2, the game changer. Jude Bellingham sparks the comeback. 2. That is the magic number for England in this semifinal. Jude Bellingham didn't just play well, he delivered a massive 2-goal contribution that completely turned the momentum and the scoreboard upside down. In a game where England was really struggling to cope with Norway's high press, Bellingham was the guy who identified the gaps. He was the undisputed MVP here. He turned a desperate defensive scramble into a historic offensive comeback by exploiting the exact spaces Norway was leaving behind in their rush to attack. There's this great breakdown of his first goal that notes Bellingham is really quick to react, and it's so true. It all started with a lovely touch and an exchange with Gordon. Gordon does so well here, slipping the ball right into Bellingham. And it is that elite opportunism, those lightning-fast reactions, that allow him to pounce on the assist and equalize right as halftime hits. By reacting just a fraction of a second faster than Norway's retreating defenders, he completely punished their high line. In football, timing is literally everything. That goal instantly deflated Norway's first half dominance and gave England this massive psychological boost right as the referee blew the whistle. Moving to part 3, the supporting cast, Saka, Rodgers, and defensive heroics. 'Cause look, a World Cup comeback, that's never just a solo act. The adjustments after halftime were immediate, and suddenly the tactical tide totally shifted. You got Bukayo Saka out there flourishing on the wing, delivering what was rightfully called super play, just curling these beautiful balls in at the far post. And crucially, by Saka staying incredibly wide, he forced Norway's defense to stretch outwards. That created massive pockets of space right in the middle, which perfectly allowed Morgan Rogers to surge forward into those newly opened lanes, letting shots fly and providing a constant threat. And on the back end, that scrambling defense we saw early on finally stabilized and held the line, which perfectly sets the stage for our next defining moment. The turning point save, because honestly, neutralizing Norway's late push was just as critical to this victory as actually scoring. Late in the game, Patrick Berg opens up for a really powerful shot. It's the exact type of ball that spells absolute disaster. But Jordan Pickford somehow manages to push it back in off the top of the crossbar. It is a miraculous intervention. Seriously, if that ball goes in, Norway reclaims the momentum and probably the game. Pickford's heroics were an absolute lifeline, proving that a defense that structurally bends but flat out refuses to break is exactly how you build a championship run.
All right, part 4, securing the ticket, going the distance in Miami.
Okay, so picture this. We are deep into the chaotic, incredibly tense final moments of the match. Both squads are just exhausted, battling through that brutal South Florida heat, desperately looking for one final opening. And then, there it is. Jude Bellingham secures his second goal of the match. It's the ultimate cathartic climax to this incredibly tense narrative. England manages to overpower Norway's sheer attacking force through brilliant, calculated opportunism. They absorbed the pressure, they stretched the defense, and Bellingham capitalized on those open spaces to cap off a historic comeback and claim an incredibly gritty 2-1 victory.
So, what's the ultimate payoff for all that grit, that intelligent tactical shifting, and that pure individual brilliance? Destination? Atlanta, Georgia. Because of this phenomenal 2-1 comeback, England is officially packing their bags for the World Cup final. Every single one of these factors, from Pickford's miraculous crossbar save, to Saka's wide play stretching the pitch, to Bellingham's elite reaction time, they all combined perfectly to punch their ticket. Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on as we wrap up today's explainer. When you look at an England squad with a midfield totally galvanized by the unstoppable Jude Bellingham, a dynamic supporting cast strategically tearing defenses apart, and a backline anchored by Pickford that clearly bends but absolutely refuses to break, who can realistically stop this team when they take the pitch in Atlanta? Honestly, it's a terrifying prospect for whoever has to meet them next. Thank you so much for diving into this breakdown with me, and hey, enjoy the final.